2 suns burned low over the red desert of Virelon, turning the sky into a sea of fire and dust. The wind carried whispers of old ruins and dying machines. A human named Evan Cross walked slowly through the wasteland, his boots crunching over broken glass sand. He had come to this forgotten world to search for lost mining tech, but what he found that day would change everything. As he reached a cracked stone ridge, he saw something moving far ahead, small fragile shapes against the dunes. At first he thought it was another scavenger, but then a weak cry reached his ears, carried by the wind. It was not human. He moved closer, his hand resting on his plasma rifle just in case. When he reached the ridge, he froze. There on her knees was an alien woman. Her skin shimmered faintly silver blue, bruised and covered in dust. In her trembling arms was a small child, barely more than a toddler. Her eyes, large and shining like liquid crystal, were filled with fear. When she saw Evan, she crawled toward him, her voice shaking. "Please, human, take us," Evan frowned. "Take you? What do you mean?" She pressed her forehead into the sand, clutching her child tight. "Take us as your concubines," she whispered, her voice broken by tears. "Please, before they find us." The words hit Evan like a punch. He had heard rumors about alien laws. Some races treated women and their children as property if they lost protection. But to beg a stranger for that, to call herself a concubine, it didn't sound like desire. It sounded like desperation. "I think there's been a mistake," Evan said quietly, lowering his weapon. "I don't want to own anyone." The woman's child began to whimper. She covered his mouth gently, shaking her head. "They will kill us if no one claims us," she said, her voice rising with fear. "My people, they saw me with a human. They said my blood is dirty. They will not stop until my son and I are erased." Evan felt his heart tighten. Behind them, in the distance, he saw a flash of light. Small, fast-moving shapes on hoverbikes. "Patrols. Who's coming?" he asked. "The hunters," she whispered, her eyes wide. "They know I escaped. Please, human, if you don't take me now, they will." Evan didn't let her finish. He grabbed her arm and pulled her to her feet. "Come on." She stumbled, clutching her child, and followed as he ran back toward his rover, an old human vehicle half buried in the sand. The engines roared to life just as the first plasma shots burned across the dunes. He hit the throttle, and the rover shot forward, sand exploding behind it. "Hold on," he shouted. The alien woman clutched her child and leaned close, the wind tearing at her silver hair. Bolts of plasma fire streaked past them, lighting the night. Evan swerved between stone arches, every turn a heartbeat from death. The girl's voice was shaking. Why would you help me?" He didn't answer at first. He was too busy staying alive. But after a moment, as they sped into the red horizon, he said softly, "Because I couldn't stand there and watch them hurt you." She looked at him like she didn't believe him, like no one had ever said such words to her before. As the last light faded behind the twin suns, the rover disappeared into the dunes. Inside, the alien child slept in his mother's arms, and the woman, still trembling, whispered something in her language. Evan didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. It was a whisper of hope. When the night grew quiet, Evan looked out at the desert stars and muttered to himself, "What have I just done?" In the distance, blue searchlights swept the sands and the sound of engines echoed closer. The hunters were still coming. But Evan Cross, the human no one expected to matter, had just made his first stand on an alien world. And somewhere beneath those crimson suns, destiny had begun to change. The night over Virelon was colder than any human world Evan had known. The crimson suns were gone, leaving a dark violet sky filled with silent lightning. His rover creaked as it crawled through the dunes, its engines tired but still holding on. Inside, the alien woman sat quietly, her child sleeping in her arms. Evan glanced at her from the driver's seat. The faint light from the dashboard made her silver blue skin glow softly. She hadn't spoken a word since the escape. Her eyes stayed fixed on her child's face like she was afraid he would vanish if she blinked. Finally, Evan broke the silence. "You got a name?" She looked up slowly, her lips trembling. "Lyra," she said after a pause. "My son's name is Thierry." Evan nodded. "Lyra, that's a good name." She gave a weak smile, but it faded quickly. "Not anymore," she whispered. "On my world, my name is cursed now." Evan frowned. "Cursed? Why?" Her fingers brushed her arm where a faint symbol glowed under the skin. A mark burned deep and shaped like a spiral of chains. It pulsed dimly like it was alive. "This," she said softly, showing the mark. "They call it the mark of shame. It means impurity and betrayal." Evan leaned closer, studying the brand. "Betrayal of what?" "Of my race," she said bitterly. "I'd loved a human once, a miner who came to our colony to dig rare metals. He was kind. He spoke gently. He taught me things my people never cared to teach: laughter, music, patience. We met in secret for months." Her eyes shimmered with pain. "When the council found out, they executed him." Evan clenched his fists on the steering wheel. "Executed him? For love?" She nodded, her voice breaking. "They said humans are lower beings. They called him animal. And when they found I was with child, they branded me. They said I carried corruption in my blood." The rover hummed quietly as the story hung between them. Outside, the desert winds howled, but inside the only sound was Lyra's soft breathing and the faint hum of the mark on her arm. Evan's voice was low when he finally spoke. "That's not right. No one gets to decide who deserves to live." "Not like that." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "You speak like him," she whispered. "He used to say the same words before they took him." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, Evan reached out carefully and touched the edge of the brand on her arm. It was warm, pulsing faintly under her skin. She flinched at first, expecting pain. But his touch was gentle. "No one owns you," he said quietly. She stared at him, speechless. Her breath trembled. "You shouldn't say that," she said softly. "If anyone hears you, they'll mark you too." "Let them try," Evan replied with a small, tired smile. He went back to driving, and the silence between them turned different. Not empty anymore, but heavy with understanding. After a while, Lyra spoke again. "You could leave us, you know. The council will pay well for my capture. Humans have done worse for less." Evan looked out at the horizon. "I've seen enough people sold, Lyra, not doing that again." She blinked in surprise. You were a soldier?" "Something like that," he said. "I fought in the outer wars, saw what greed does. I came here to stay away from it all." Her eyes softened. "And yet you helped me." Evan gave a faint laugh. "Guess old habits die hard." Lyra looked down at her child, brushing his silver hair. "He will not survive long if they find us again," she whispered. "His blood glows when he sleeps. They can track him by it." Evan thought for a moment. "Then we'll hide better. I know places where scanners can't reach. We'll find shelter." Lyra's lips parted like she wanted to protest, but no words came. No one had ever spoken of her safety before. As the rover crossed the red dunes, the first light of dawn began to rise, 2 suns climbing slowly into the sky. Lyra stared at them, her eyes glistening with tears. For the first time since her exile, she felt a small spark inside her, something she had long forgotten. It was hope. Evan looked at her reflection in the glass and whispered to himself, "Let them come. They'll learn what humans protect." The story of the shamed alien and the wandering human had just begun to spread its wings beneath the crimson suns. The twin suns rose higher, painting the endless dunes of Viralone in shades of gold and blood red. Evan's rover cut through the sand like a wounded beast, engines growling under the weight of exhaustion. Inside the small cabin, the air was thick with silence, broken only by the faint hum of machinery and the soft breathing of Lyra's sleeping child. Evan kept his eyes on the radar, a flickering green screen that showed too many red dots. Patrols. They were closing in. Lyra sat beside him, her silver blue hands trembling as she held Tiri close. "They won't stop," she whispered. "The hunters are trained to follow the scent of the mark. They can track me anywhere." Evan's jaw tightened. "Then we'll make sure they lose the trail." He reached under the console and pulled out a small metal case. Inside were several flares and a few round metal orbs, decoy signal pods, old military tech from his soldier days. He hadn't used them in years, but today they might mean life or death. Lyra watched as he began connecting wires and checking circuits. "You still fight like one of your war men," she said softly. Evan gave a short smile. "Old habits keep you breathing." Suddenly the radar beeped, 3 fast-moving signals coming from the west. A second later, the air around them shimmered with bright light. Blue plasma bolts struck the sand near the rover, exploding into showers of molten dust. "Hold on," Evan shouted. He turned the wheel hard, sending the rover sliding down a steep dune. The vehicle bounced and twisted, the engine howling. Lyra cried out, clutching Teary to her chest as the horizon spun. A bolt of energy grazed the roof, burning a black line across the metal. Evan slammed the stabilizers and hit a switch. The rover's exhaust flared bright red and smoke poured out in thick clouds. "They can't shoot what they can't see," he said through clenched teeth. Through the haze, Lyra saw 3 small hovercrafts chasing them, sleek, curved machines glowing with alien blue light. The hunters wore bone-white armor and masks that hid their faces. To them, Lyra wasn't a mother. She was a stain to be erased. One of the hovercrafts drew close. The hunter raised a long rifle, aiming for the rear of the rover. Before he could fire, Evan grabbed one of the decoy pods and threw it out the side window. It flashed bright white, sending out false heat signals. The hunter fired, but the plasma bolt hit the decoy instead, exploding into a cloud of sparks. Evan grinned. "Got you." He threw 2 more pods in different directions. The radar showed confusion. The hunter's sensors flickered, chasing the false trails. The rover roared forward, speeding deeper into the desert. For a few minutes, there was only wind and silence. Then Lyra spoke softly, still shaking. "You risked everything." For us, Evan didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed on the dunes ahead. "No one should be hunted for who they love," he finally said. Lyra turned to him. Her eyes were wet, but they shone with something new. Respect, and maybe even admiration. After another hour, the rover reached an old mining zone, a graveyard of rusted machines and metal towers half buried in sand. Evan slowed down and parked near a collapsed bunker entrance. "We'll rest here," he said. "The scanners won't reach us underground." He helped Lyra and Teary climb down, then led them inside. The air was dry and smelled of old oil and stone. Lyra set her child down gently and looked around. "What is this place?" "An old human dig site," Evan said. "Abandoned after the last quake. But it still has power lines buried deep. We can hide here for a while." As Lyra settled her son to sleep, Evan worked to seal the entrance with sand and scrap. When he turned back, she was watching him quietly. "You fight like a warrior," she said softly, "but you protect like a father." Evan paused, his eyes meeting hers. "Maybe that's what makes us human," he said simply. Lyra smiled faintly, her voice breaking. "Where I come from, no one fights for the weak." "You do." Outside, the wind howled, carrying the echoes of the hunters still searching the desert. But deep inside the bunker, under the crimson dust, a strange peace settled between the human and the alien. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to breathe without fear. And Evan, hardened soldier, loner, wanderer, realized he had something to protect again. As the lights dimmed, he looked at the sleeping child and whispered, "They'll have to cross the stars to take you from me." Above them, unseen in the night, the alien patrols began regrouping, unaware that the human they hunted had already become their greatest threat. The old mining bunker was silent except for the faint hum of buried machines and the soft breathing of 3 souls hiding in the dark. Outside, the wind swept across the dunes like a ghostly tide, carrying the distant echoes of patrol ships searching for life. Evan sat near a flickering lamp, cleaning the dust from his rifle. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Lyra sat a few meters away, her child Teary curled against her side under a thin blanket. The boy's small chest rose and fell quietly, until the lamp beside them began to flicker strangely. Evan looked up. "You see that?" Lyra turned her head. The lamp's light wasn't fading, and it was changing. The glow shifted from dull yellow to soft white, then to a faint blue that filled the bunker with gentle warmth. Teary opened his eyes. They shimmered, bright silver with a faint ring of gold around the pupil. The broken console beside him suddenly beeped, then powered on. Rusted wires sparked back to life, humming like they hadn't in years. Evan slowly put down his rifle. "What in the world?" Lyra held her son close, her voice trembling. "It's happening again," she whispered. "Again?" Evan asked. She nodded, tears gathering in her eyes. He was born during a storm. When he cried for the first time, the hospital lights turned white and didn't go out for 3 days. They called him a blight, but the truth is, he's not a curse. He's something they fear. Evan moved closer, lowering his voice. "What is he, Lyra?" She hesitated before answering. "He has your kind's blood and then something more. Humans adapt faster than any species. When I was with his father, he said it was in your nature to fix what is broken. Tiri, he can do that, but not just with machines. Evan stared at the boy who was now touching the bunker wall. Wherever his small hand moved, cracks sealed themselves. Metal shimmered and grew smooth again. Even the air felt lighter, cleaner. Good Lord, Evan whispered. He's repairing things with energy. Lyra nodded. Yes, his blood carries light that heals. When the council saw it, they panicked. They said he could spread human corruption to their children, that he might change what it means to be pure. Evan leaned back against the wall, shaking his head slowly. They're afraid of evolution, Lyra's voice broke. They were going to destroy him. I couldn't let them. I ran and they burned me with the mark. They said my line would die with me. The bunker lights flickered again. Tiri was smiling softly, drawing patterns in the dust. He looked so innocent, unaware of the fear that followed him. Evan crouched down and looked him in the eyes. Hey, little guy, he said gently. You're not a curse. You're a miracle. Tiri tilted his head, then reached out and touched Evan's arm. For a second, Evan felt warmth flow through his body, a pulse that eased the old pain in his shoulder from years of battle. His eyes widened. Lyra gasped. He likes you, she said softly. He's never done that with anyone else. Evan smiled faintly. Guess we're friends then. The boy giggled, a sound so pure it made the whole bunker feel alive. But then the moment broke. The radar screen on the console blinked red. Evan's heart sank. They're scanning again. They're close. Lyra's face turned pale. They'll sense his energy if he keeps using it. Evan turned to Tiri. Buddy, we need to hide your light now, okay? The boy didn't understand the words, but he seemed to feel the fear in the room. His eyes dimmed, the glow fading slowly. The lights returned to their dull yellow. Evan quickly moved to shut off the console and cover the equipment. They'll pick up anything active. We can't risk it. Lyra stood beside him, her voice trembling. How long can we run, Evan? They'll never stop. He looked at her, truly looked at her. The fear, the love for her son, the exhaustion, and beneath all that strength. Then we stop running, he said. We fight smart, Lyra frowned. Fight you against their fleets? Evan smirked. Not just me. Humanity has friends, and if that boy can heal machines. He looked around at the half-buried mining tech. Maybe we can give the hunters a surprise. Lyra stared at him, unsure whether to fear or trust the plan forming in his mind. But one thing she couldn't deny. Humans were not like her people. They didn't bend to fate. They changed it. As night fell over the dunes, the old bunker lights dimmed once more, hiding the little family from the eyes of the hunters. But beneath the sand in silence and shadows, something new was waking, powered by the touch of a child who carried both human courage and alien light. And above them, far across the dunes, the council's fleet began to descend. The next morning, the desert sky burned orange and the air shimmered with heat. Evan stood outside the bunker, scanning the horizon through a cracked visor. The wind had died, but the silence didn't feel safe. It felt too quiet. Inside, Lyra was feeding Tiri a handful of dry fruit rations, whispering soft words in her alien tongue. The child laughed, his silver eyes bright again. For a moment it almost felt peaceful, almost normal. But then the peace shattered. A deep hum filled the air, distant, low, and growing louder. Evan rushed inside. They've found us, he said. Before Lyra could answer, the old hollow communicator in the corner sparked to life. A bright blue projection filled the bunker, showing the face of an alien council member, tall, cloaked in silver light, eyes cold as stone. Human, the voice boomed, echoing through the room. You have taken property of the Altheran Dominion. Surrender the marked female and her offspring, or face annihilation. You have one rotation to comply. Lyra gasped and held Tiri close. They traced my mark, she whispered. They can feel it whenever I'm near a transmitter. Evan glared at the hologram. She's not your property, he growled. The counselor tilted its head. Humans speak of morality as if it changes law. You interfere with our purity codes. You defy the order of stars. Return them, or your name will be burned into our history as a violator. The image flickered out, leaving only silence. Lyra sank to her knees, her body trembling. They'll destroy you, Evan, she said softly. They'll destroy everything just to erase us. Evan knelt beside her. Then we'll make sure they remember why they shouldn't have tried. She looked up, eyes wide. You can't fight the Council's fleet. They have weapons that can erase cities. You're just one man. Evan smiled faintly, but there was no humor in it. One man can start a war, or stop one. He walked toward the back of the bunker where old mining machines lay covered in dust. Their rusted frames gleamed faintly under Thierry's touch the night before. Evan brushed the sand away and stared at the heavy drills and power cores. These machines used to dig through mountains, he said. With a few changes, they could do more than dig. Lyra stood confused. You plan to fight them? With miners? Evan turned and looked at her, determination burning in his eyes. With a mechanic, a mother, and a child who can light up the dark. That's enough. He spent the next hours working. His hands were steady, his mind sharp. He cut wires, fused parts, and shaped the drills into launchers. Thierry crawled beside him, touching each machine, filling it with faint white energy. One by one, the dead metal began to hum again. Lyra watched in silence. She had seen soldiers before, cruel, proud, unbending. But Evan was different. He didn't fight because he loved war. He fought because he couldn't stand to see the innocent fall. By nightfall, the bunker glowed with pale light. Dozens of old mining drones floated, powered by Thierry's gift. Their sensors blinked to life, awaiting command. Evan wiped sweat from his face. That should give us a fighting chance. Lyra stepped closer. Why do this for us? You could still leave. No one would blame you. Evan looked at her. Really looked at her. The mark on her arm, the child sleeping beside her, the tears she tried to hide. Because, he said softly, someone has to stand up when everyone else bows down. Outside, the wind howled again, carrying the echoes of engines in the distance. Lyra turned to the door, fear creeping back. They're coming. Evan picked up his rifle, its barrel gleaming in the faint blue light. Let them come, he said quietly. We'll show them what humans protect. The desert began to glow as ships entered the atmosphere, hundreds of them, descending like falling stars. The ground trembled beneath their power. Lyra held her son tight, whispering, Please, let this not be our end. Evan stood at the doorway, his shadow long and still. No, he said, eyes locked on the sky. This is where humanity begins. As the alien fleet surrounded the dunes, the Council's message repeated across every frequency. Return the impurity or be destroyed. But in that moment, under the twin suns of Virelon, a lone human refused to kneel. And across the stars, the story of Evan Cross, the man who defied the Dominion for a mother and her child, began to spread like wildfire. The alien capital loomed ahead, a city of sharp spires and glowing towers that pierced the sky. Its walls shimmered like liquid metal, and the ground beneath them thrummed with power. Evan walked with Lyra and Thierry to the gates, unarmed, his hands empty but his heart steady. Lyra clutched her child tightly. You don't have to do this, she whispered. We can hide. We can run. Please don't face them alone. Evan shook his head. No hiding this time. If we run, they will hunt us forever. The only way to stop it is to face them. The massive doors of the council chamber opened, revealing a hall so large it could hold 1,000 warriors. Hundreds of alien delegates stood in silence, their eyes sharp, their expressions unreadable. The air vibrated with tension. A tall counselor with silver armor stepped forward. Human, it said, voice echoing like steel on stone. You dare appear before the Altheran Dominion. You have broken our laws. You have hidden the impure. Speak your defense or be judged. Evan stepped forward. I don't need to defend myself, he said, his voice calm but strong. I did what any human should. I protected the innocent. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Some aliens gasped. Others whispered in disbelief. The counselor's eyes narrowed. You claim morality above law? You claim to protect what is forbidden? You dare mock the order of the stars? I mock nothing, Evan said. I only refuse to let cruelty stand. She is not your property. He is not a weapon. They are living beings. Like you. Like me. Lyra held her breath, Thierry's tiny fingers clutching her arm. The counselors whispered among themselves, unsure how to react. For centuries, no one had spoken against them this boldly. One counselor stepped forward. Then accept judgment, human. Punish the mother. Punish the child. Make them repent their defiance. Evan's jaw tightened. He could feel the fear in Lyra's eyes, the trembling of the child. And in that instant, he made his choice. Then punish me too. he shouted, stepping between the council and the family. I am the one who protected them. I am the one who hid them. Punish me if you must, but they will not be harmed. The chamber fell silent. Alien eyes widened. The murmurs turned to whispers of shock and disbelief. No human had ever spoken this way. No human had ever dared stand in front of the council alone. Lyra dropped to her knees, tears streaming. Evan, what are you doing? I'm showing them, he said quietly, what humanity means. The counselors huddled, whispering urgently. They could see the courage in his stance, the truth in his words. He had exposed their weakness and that no matter their power, one brave soul could change the tide. Tiri stirred, sensing the tension. His small hand reached for Evan, and the faint glow returned to his eyes. The energy pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat. Machines in the chamber, consoles, energy shields, even the lights, flickered in response, humming gently. A few counselors stepped back, fear touching their perfect masks. The child's power was no longer a secret. The council had underestimated both human courage and alien potential. Evan looked at Lyra. It's okay. He's safe. We'll make them see the truth. The counselor in silver armor raised a hand, commanding silence. Human, you have committed crimes against our order. Yet your bravery is undeniable. We must deliberate. Evan didn't flinch. Lyra held Tiri close, whispering words of hope. Around them, the chamber remained tense, but something had shifted. The balance of power had changed. Outside, the sky of Virayon glowed with the setting suns. Somewhere in the city, whispers began to spread, of the human who stood for the weak, of the child whose light could heal, and of the mother who dared to defy centuries of fear. Evan Cross had walked alone into the heart of the Dominion. And for the first time they saw not a conqueror, but a protector. The council's judgment would come, but the story had already begun. The stars themselves seemed to pause, waiting for what would happen next. Beneath the alien gaze, one truth was clear. Human courage could not be measured by size or fleet. It was measured by the heart. The chamber was silent. Hundreds of alien eyes watched Evan, Lyra, and Tiri waiting for judgment. The twin suns of Virayon had set, leaving the city bathed in a soft violet glow. For the first time, the council's authority felt fragile, almost human. Evan stepped forward, placing himself in front of Lyra and Tiri. I won't let you harm them, he said, his voice calm but firm. Punish me instead. I am the one who chose to protect them. The counselors whispered among themselves, their voices rising in anxious tones, but no one dared move. No one had ever faced them like this before. Tiri stirred in Lyra's arms, sensing the tension. His silver eyes began to shimmer faintly, just as they had in the bunker. The council didn't notice at first, but the hum started, soft at first, then stronger, filling the chamber. Machines flickered, energy shields pulsed, and lights danced with an intensity that made even the strongest counselor flinch. Lyra gasped. Tiri, don't! She whispered, holding him tight. But Tiri had already begun. His small hands glowed, radiating warmth and light. The energy flowed outward, moving through the floor and into the machines, into the walls, even into the counselor's devices. Power systems that had been dormant for centuries whirred to life, glowing with blue and gold energy. Evan took a step back, astonished. He's not just glowing. He's fixing it. Everything he touches. It lives. The counselor screamed in alarm. Beams of light snapped through the room, shutting down weapons and shields. Doors opened where they had been locked for decades. Even the holographic projectors that carried the council's commands flickered and warped. Lyra clutched her child. He's not harming them. He's healing everything. Evan's eyes widened as realization struck. The council thought his gift was a curse. They feared it could corrupt their people. But it's a blessing. He can change the world. The leader of the council, silver armor gleaming, tried to raise a hand, but the devices around him refused to obey. The floor beneath him hummed, the lights bending toward the child's glow. The council realized too late that the boy's power was beyond their control. Tiri giggled softly, reaching for Evan. The warmth of his light washed over the human, filling him with calm and courage. Evan knelt beside him. It's okay, little one, he said. You've done what you needed to do. Lyra stepped forward, tears streaming. They wanted to erase us, to punish us. And yet here we are. Because of him, Because of you. Evan looked at the council, their faces pale and shocked. You've ruled through fear for centuries, he said. But true strength isn't in punishment. It's in protection. You've just witnessed it. The counselors lowered their heads, unable to speak. Even their weapons were silent. The galaxy, they realized, had changed in that moment. The child, a symbol of human courage and alien potential, had rewritten the rules. Outside, ships hovered, scanning for disturbances, but they too detected the energy. Messages were sent across the sector. The human and the alien child had survived, and the Dominion's power had been humbled by a simple act of bravery. Lyra hugged Evan tightly, her voice breaking. You didn't take me as a concubine. You gave me freedom. You gave my son a future. Evan smiled, placing a hand on Tiri's glowing head. We survived together, and maybe we can teach them what it means to be brave, to be kind. The council quietly retreated, powerless against the child's energy and human resolve. Outside the chamber, the city's lights shifted. As if bowing to the new guardians of the stars, a human, an alien mother, and a child who carried hope in his veins. As they left the capital, the twin suns rose again over Virelon, painting the desert in warm gold and crimson. Lyra held Tiri close, smiling at Evan. We will survive. We will change everything. Evan looked out at the horizon, a small grin on his face. And the galaxy will never forget that even the smallest among us can light up the darkest night. With Tiri's glow leading the way, they rose into the stars, a family bound not by laws or fear, but by courage, hope, and the unstoppable force of humanity.